Frank, over the course of 40 years, had gathered a few cars, and he realized he had to do something with them. So at the time, he owned some property across the street from where we are now, some old warehouses, and he bought a little manufacturing company called the Rusado Building, and started reworking that building to hold his cars. And I think even he was surprised how many cars he actually had, because it filled up that building. Ultimately, jumping ahead, there was an opportunity for an economic development program by the state of Mississippi, and it was a way to develop older parts of towns. In our case, it was downtown, where you recouped up to 35% of your original investment in a tourist-related facility through the sales tax you produced. So I like that. As a taxpayer, you had to produce it to get it back. And nicely, you could invite people within a certain distance from the original facility to participate, which the Hilton Garden Inn, Fair Park, the Grill became part of that redevelopment project. So ultimately, we opened in December 2002, and we've been in business for 16 years, which is pretty amazing, really, when you think about it. Time does zoom by. And over the average, I would say, over the course of those 16 years, we average about 25,000 people a year from all over the world, certainly all over North America. We've done every state more than once, every province more than once. And we've tried to add some things for local people, like changing exhibits that we would bring in through local people that were willing to loan us their Mustangs or whatever we were putting calls out for. And that's been a good program. It gives us an opportunity to not just have the core collection, but special interest. We've done cruise-ins, and that's been a lot of fun, actually, because if you have 50, 100 cars in your parking lot, they're classic cars, it brings in people that are just driving by. And so everybody wins when car collectors get together. And now we're closing on March 31st to the public at 4:30. All of our staff will be on hand because it's an important day for us. It's a sad day, but it's a congratulatory day too. The people in this building that are here have been extraordinary. 4 old truckers that are our mainstay in terms of taking care of the cars. 3 people on the counter, and they're volunteers, the truckers. People on the counter, we've got 3 part-time staff on the counter. The rest of us volunteer because we enjoy it. We enjoy the people coming through the door and the stories they share with us, their memories that some of these cars will ignite. And we're proud. We're proud we ended up being #1 things to do by TripAdvisor in the state of Mississippi. We're hugely proud of that, and it's because we enjoy the people coming through the door. I think they sense that, they feel welcome, and Southern hospitality is alive and well in the South. So his first car was an MG, and he restored it, and it cost him more to restore it than it did to buy it, which caused him to think, wait a minute, I enjoy cars, but I need to be buying cars that will appreciate. And it wasn't that it was about the money, it was about the reality of this car needs to be a little rarer. And so really from there, he had a few other cars that were stored in Tupelo, a Model T Ford pickup truck that was beautifully restored. At the time, he was a Pierce Arrow, a Rolls Royce, and can't remember the other one, but he wanted to use them for parade cars. And so I think that started him going, but I think that Model T really started him going in, wait a minute, I need to find. He wasn't so much about the memories, he was more about the technology and the design. And he started, like he did everything, read profusely. And at the time, the internet really wasn't up and going. So the more he read, he subscribed to everything he possibly could. He started developing a wish list. And once that wish list started, pretty much that was the end of, oh, we'll get a car here and there. And once you get on an auction list, you get every auction notice there is. So through the course of 40 years, we went to plenty of auctions, but the more fun ones were ones that he would hear about through the grapevine. And we'd go to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and meet an old farmer who was not a fool and probably had seen 10 Franks before us. And yeah, I got a few cars in the barn, and yeah, I'm going to show you, but I'm not going to sell them to you. And Frank always thought, oh, I know I can charm him, you know. And I just smiled, watched Frank wander off into the barn. And that particular guy, he didn't sell him. And we've been in Kansas, truly in sub-zero weather, with portalettes beside the barn, and there was a barn. And this gentleman had passed away, but his family were selling several cars, very unique cars, but more importantly to some people, including Jay Leno, amazing motorcycles. There was one there that nobody present could actually identify. It was that early. And Frank did not like the cold at all. I don't mind the cold. We were there for 3 days in the probably 10 below zero with a little wind to add to that. He did buy a few cars out of there. And those trips were great fun because part of them were about Frank and his cars, but part of them were the experience of seeing another part of the country you'd never seen, sometimes survival in sub-zero temperatures. And as Wayne Carini, his show, Chasing Classics, it is the chase. To me, it's the chase. To Frank, it was the chase too, but hopefully he'd end up with a car or two at the end of the chase. So when he passed, he had a wish list. He wanted a Thunderbird. We had a Thunderbird on loan, an early Thunderbird. The last one he bought was the Morgan. And by then, I was fairly familiar with cars on some level. And I thought, wow, a Morgan, this is exciting, you know, blah, blah, blah. He shows up with a 3-wheel Morgan. I'm picturing a sleek sports car. It's a sports car, but it's basically a 1-seater with 3 wheels. And I was like, oh, but that was on his wish list. He thought that was a highly unusual car. I'm trying to think of others. He did develop kind of little addictions to certain brands. He drove a Mercedes every day. and it was a 64 300 SEC cream on cream, and no seat belts. He'd drive it about 100 miles a day for years, and it had no air conditioning, no seat belts. It wasn't a particularly, let's all jump in it and go for a ride in 95-degree weather for me. And he was very particular about his cars. He took very good care of them, especially his personal cars. And at that time, our driveway, we lived in Florida, was crushed shell. And crushed shell was getting in his car, and he was not a happy camper. He had the whole driveway and parking lot bricked because of crushed shell in his car. So, okay, prioritize here. How about maybe a new electric panel instead of a fuse box? No, let's brick the driveway. So, but after that, he bought several 300 SCCs because he wanted parts, was his excuse. Well, it's a parts car. The other one he developed a real taste for was Lagondas. British cars, he was kind of on a British roll, which worked superbly for me because we always went to England to track these down and had a great time. But near the end of his life, I would say the Lagondas and the Elvises, which also a British car, were probably his favorite. And I have a feeling we would have more had he continued to have the opportunity to go collect. Somewhere I have that wish list. I'll have to dig it out and take a look at it. I think mostly they were American though. And historic, anything historic, he was always up for because he knew they were so, people would never see them again.